And welcome to another edition of the College Pride Press podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brett Kruppel, and I am joined by my esteemed co-host, Sean Bach. So we are back and better than ever, and we're going to be talking some SEC hoops this week. As promised, we are going through the conferences one by one, and this week we're hitting on the SEC. So if you missed the Big 12 or the Big East ones, go back on the podcast on our feed, and you can go and listen to those. But this week we're going to be talking about the SEC. And as always, we go from the bottom of last year's standings all the way to the top, and we talk about each team, their new players, and kind of their outlook for this year. So, Sean, you got any opening thoughts before we hop in here?
Well, what's up, College Pride Press listeners? Sean Bach back again. It's Media Day week, so the coaches, players are getting together with all the media, getting all their questions out, getting all their previews. It's preview season, so that just means we're getting that much closer to the season. So I'm excited to break down the SEC and what is to be a very good basketball conference this year. They might even take over the name basketball conference, not football conference. We'll see, but this is going to be a really tough conference for sure. A lot of teams up and down. There's obviously you got Kentucky, Florida, those teams at the top, maybe in Alabama. But then once you get down the list, there's a bunch of teams that really you have no idea where they'll place. They could either finish 6th, 7th, 8th, or they can finish 13th, 14th. So it should be a good race this year. I'm excited to break it down.
Yeah, the SEC is going to be an interesting conference, and obviously Sean might be slightly biased as he wrote the conference previews for the SEC, so he's got a great look at it. But maybe after spending all this time writing those articles, he's got slight bias towards the SEC.
Still working on them.
Yeah, so we'll start it off here. And when I opened up the standings to prep for this podcast, before I tossed it to Sean, they got 2 5-stars, 2 4-stars, and a 3-star. So
yeah, Brad,
obviously 2 brothers that are
Brad, you there? Brad?
Sean, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. No, I can't hear you anymore. I can hear you. Brad?
All right, are we back?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, we're gonna have to do some editing.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. That's all. That's the whole part of it, though.
Yeah. No, you're good. You're good. So should we just resume talking about Mizzou?
Yeah, we can talk about Mizzou. You want me to go?
Yeah, go. Just start off here.
All right. Well, obviously, the man, the myth, the legend, Michael Porter Jr., aka the second coming of Jesus Christ. Um, he is the real reason Missouri basketball is a thing again. They've had those down seasons the past couple of years. Really no hope around the program. Their whole athletic department has been a mess, and they're really relying on him to rejuvenate the whole excitement around the Missouri athletics, not just basketball, just the whole everything about it. So he's definitely going to be someone, a freshman that's going to be at the top of the list, All-Americans, and Tigers are hoping he can bring them back to the NCAA tournament, even make a farther run. And then you got Jonte, too, Porter's younger brother, who reclassified to the 2017 class this summer after playing AAU ball. He'll be a solid contributor. I don't think he'll be really a standout like Porter is. I mean, obviously, Porter's in a league of his own when it comes to top players in the country, but Jonte is going to be a really good contributor, and I think that down low presence is going to be really huge for them. Along with that, you got Blake Harris, another freshman who's going to be a pretty solid guard. Jordan Barnett is a returner whose season was cut short last year due to injury. He averaged 12 points a game. He'll be someone to look out for. I mean, this Missouri team, they lost a lot of close games last year, and a big reason for that was they didn't have much talent, but they were competitive, kept in games. Their record didn't really show, but, I mean, overall, they're going to be a solid group this year. I think they could either finish top half or maybe even lower. It depends how the Porters pan out, how well they play together, and how well they bind to that system. But it's kind of cool to see Missouri basketball being relevant again.
Yeah, throwback to the days of Phil Pressey and those ridiculously good Missouri teams. Where are you thinking that they're going to end up in the rankings? You said top half. Where are you looking more specifically?
Probably, I'd have to say 6 or 7 maybe. That top half, I really like in this sort. I'm kind of spoiling. I like our standings that we did a little bit with the top half with Kentucky, Alabama, Florida. I may want to flip that Alabama, Florida, but just down. Yeah, I think they're reasonable. Reasonable is 6, 7. I think South Carolina is going to drop a little bit, but I could see Tigers slipping in somewhere. I think Porter's going to be great for them this year, and I think he's going to be the real difference maker without a doubt.
Yeah, Jonte Porter Jonte and Michael Porter, but the two of them are both going to be very interesting to watch. I think the key for this team is going to be the backcourt. As much as they want to have the ball in Porter's hands at all times, they're going to need something from that backcourt to draw attention away. And I think that's why Jonte Porter and Jeremiah Tillman were two big commits, because as good as Michael Porter is, you have to have guys that can detract attention away from the defense and kind of force him to play Porter straight up, which is when he'll really be able to shine and show off his scoring prowess.
Yeah, I heard at Media Day, the big buzz, I mean, obviously was around Michael Porter Jr., but I heard a lot of good things about Jeremiah Tillman, kid who originally committed to Illinois. He'll be strapping up for Mizzou this year. He is a very solid post player. He can hit it from the outside, take you inside. He's just a strong presence inside. That'll be a good second-hand scorer to the Porters and then Blake Harris and all those guys. So I think Missouri's going to be a really solid team this year. I don't think they could be – I don't know if they'll be a second weekend team. I'm not ready to buy into that. We'll have to see. But I think they could be a solid middle-of-the-pack team in the SEC and slip into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I think the NCAA tournament will kind of be the barometer as to Missouri's status and their success this year. All right, next up, we're going to talk about LSU. Obviously, last year, no Ben Simmons. So they were 2-16 in conference play, 10-21 overall. What are your thoughts on LSU?
I mean, a lot of people are saying LSU is going to be the bottom of the SEC. I could see how they're like why they think that. I think Will Wade's going to have a project his first year, but I don't think it's going to be to the point where they're going to be not competitive at all and just be like, I don't know, like maybe a Rutgers or something like that. I think they can be competitive, win a few games. The pickup of Tremont Waters late in the game was definitely huge. And then that grad transfer, Randy Anwasar, I don't really know exactly how to say his name, but he averaged 23 points, I believe, at Utah State. Yeah, I think it was – or Southern Utah. That's where it was. He's going to be a great scorer for them, which is huge alongside Tremont. So those two will probably be the starters in the backcourt. And then at the front court, you got Duop Reith, averaged 12 points, 6 rebounds last year. He's going to be really good inside, alongside Aaron Epps, 6'10", senior. He's going to be really solid. I think this LSU team, I mean, Will Wade, he's got something going down there. They're getting recruits. They're getting top recruits down there for visits and stuff. They got Tremont Waters late in the game, which is a huge pickup. I know Ryan Delkamp is really big on Tremont Waters. He's a great distributor, scorer, great. He's a solid defense player too. Kind of needs a little bit of improvement in that category, but I think he's going to be a great point guard for the future. I could see him, I mean, even though he's a top 40 recruit, I could see him being one of those guys that stays all 4 years, kind of like a Shabazz Napier type player. I wouldn't say as electric or as prolific scoring, but someone who knows how to get the job done and can win you ball games. So Will Wade definitely hit the jackpot there. I think he's going to have a great tenure during LSU, or during his time at LSU. I think he's going to be there for a couple of years and really rebuild that program and get things, get people excited about basketball in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, the way I like to judge recruits that IU is recruiting is based on how sad or happy Ryan Delkamp is, who's a writer for CPP, when the recruit commits to either IU or somewhere else. And Delkamp was absolutely devastated when Tremont Waters committed to Georgetown and then flipped to LSU. So I think he's going to be very good. The last time Dahl was this disappointed, I think, was when Bruce Brown ended up going to Miami. And we all saw how good he has been in Miami. So I think that's very interesting. Will Wade's done some work on the recruiting trail, obviously bringing in Tremont Waters, great point guard. He's going to kind of be the ball handler to build this foundation. Brandon Rackle, 4-star combo guard, and Galen Alexander. So those are 3 4-star guys, that all backcourt guys, the 1, 2, and 3 of the future for LSU. So I think that'll be very interesting. Whether their front court is able to kind of hold their own. Obviously, the SEC has always been tough in the past because, your season is a success or failure based on how you do against Kentucky, it seems like. So, there are not a lot of other games. Although there are good teams, I don't think, guys are really getting up for when Florida comes to town. Even though they're good teams, it's all about whether John Calipari and Kentucky, how you guys do against them. So I think it'll be interesting to kind of see. I think they are going to be able to beat up, win a few games against the middle tier of the SEC, but I don't think they're going to be quite in there. I think I have them at 10 in the SEC prediction standings. Sean, where are you predicting them to end up?
Yeah, I could see it 8 through 10. I mean, I forgot to mention Brandon Sampson, who is averaged 11.6 points last year as a junior. He'll probably be alongside, or he'll probably be in that backcourt too. They'll probably play 3 guards, but I think that backcourt of Anwasar, however you say his name, and Sampson and Waters, I think that's going to be their ticket to winning a few games and maybe being a last 4 out team in NCAA tournament. Who knows? But I think they could be an 8 through 10 team in the SEC.
Yeah, I think that's right where it is. All right, next up, we're going to talk about Mississippi State, Ben Holland. Obviously, this has been a very interesting team. 6-12 last year in conference play, 16-16 overall. And, Ben Holland's been bringing in a lot of good recruits there to Stark Vegas. Obviously, that hasn't worked out. Malik Newman transferred, and Mario Kegler has transferred. So, this team has had very good recruiting classes, and they've showed a lot of promise, but they've just underperformed each and every year. What are your thoughts on Mississippi State this year, Sean?
I mean, it all starts with the backcourt, like LSU. The backcourt for Mississippi State, the Weatherspoon brothers, Junior Quindary, and then his freshman brother Nick, who was a top 30 recruit coming in this year. And then Lamar Peters, another guard who averaged, I think, 25 minutes a game last year. Those guys are really going to be depended on heavily to lead this Bulldogs team, who really has a non-existent front court at this point after the transfer of Mario Kegler, which was a huge loss for them. I mean, he didn't average like too many points, but he definitely was a presence inside and someone who was coming along. So I think this Mississippi State team, I mean, I'm really high on their backcourt, but in a league that's been getting a lot of bigs recently, I think that's going to be their real downfall. I don't know how they'll recover from that. I mean, obviously your backcourt can only do so much for you. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they respond, especially with a back or a front court that's lacking depth and talent.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting. I think, Mississippi State will be a very interesting team to watch. I think the player that I'm really watching is that Schneider Harard. He was a top 50 player coming in this year or last year, and he was very disappointing his freshman year, only playing about, 17, 18 minutes a game. Really not that impressive. So I think, he's going to have to really step it up and kind of show that potential and why he was such a top-rated recruit. Weatherspoon brothers are obviously, I think they're going to have huge seasons, but I'm just not sure if they can carry this team to the promised land in the SEC with, there's a couple great teams as we're going to talk about, one great team, and then there's a lot of just very good teams, solid teams that are going to be tough to beat. And if you don't have they've never been known for a good home crowd at the Humphrey Coliseum. So I think, it's, you got to protect home court. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that with the crowd they have and the talent they have. So I think it could be a long season for them. I have Mississippi State coming in at 13th. I just don't see, even with the Weatherspoon brothers, that enough there, unless Schneider Harard takes big steps forward to become a dominant big man that he was believed to be coming out of high school.
Yeah, I see them like 13th, 14th as well. I don't think they can really recover from that lack of front court players.
The one thing that's really interesting about the SEC that I was going to mention at the top, but I just forgot about it, is the recruiting. I mean, there are a lot of good recruits in this conference. I mean, look at we've talked about the bottom three teams, and we have 3 5-stars and a couple 4-stars on Missouri. Then we have 3 4-stars on LSU, and then you look at this Mississippi State roster. They have 4 and 5 stars up and down their roster, and they're at the bottom.
Yeah,
it's pretty crazy that they've been able to recruit so well. Even at the bottom of the conference.
Yeah, I think everyone just wants to play against Kentucky. I mean, I don't know about that, but
either you want to be Kentucky or you want to beat Kentucky.
Yeah, but that's definitely a recruiting pitch. I mean, you're playing the best of the best night in, night out. Obviously, a couple years ago, Kentucky was the lone dominant team, but I mean, you got a couple programs that are sneaking up. Obviously, like I said, LSU is coming around with Will Wade, but yeah, there's just a bunch more. We'll get into those later on. I don't want to go on a tangent.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just wanted to mention the recruiting because it just seems like, a shock to see the lower tiers of this conference recruiting so well. All right, so next up, just to kind of segue into that, we have Auburn, 7-11 in conference play, 18-14, and they have 2 5-stars on their roster. I mean, Auburn's a good team. Bruce Pearl, good coach. He's been recruiting pretty well. He has Mustafa Haran and Austin Wiley, 2 5-stars that are coming back for their sophomore year. Wiley only played the second semester last year, so he just kind of got his toes wet a little bit. But, both those guys are coming back. They add 2 4-stars. Chuma Okeke, I believe that is. He's a 4-star small forward. And Davion Mitchell, 4 guards. This team looks pretty good. This roster looks pretty good. What are your thoughts on Auburn this year?
I mean, yeah, you said it. Mustafa Haran and Austin Wiley, those 2 are going to be Batman and Robin for them in the pick and roll game. Wiley showed great promise this year in the U19 tournament, or the U19 overseas. He's definitely going to be a player to look, or he's definitely going to be a force down low. It's going to be tough to deal with, especially in a conference that's absolutely loaded with bigs. Like I said earlier, he'll definitely be one of the top tiers. And then you got Mustafa Haran. He averaged, I believe, 15 points a game and 6 rebounds, and only 1 assist, which is kind of concerning for a guard. But, I mean, Haran's known for his scoring, and that's what he does best. And he's going to have to score even more this year. I mean, they got a bunch of guys coming back. it seems. They got like maybe 4 or 5 guys that played over 20 minutes last year, and then they got a solid group of freshmen. So I think this Auburn team is going to be really talented. I really like that duo of Wiley and Heron. I don't know why. I don't know. It's just this team is going to be really talented, I feel. I think they can probably sneak up into that top tier, maybe top 5, top 6. I don't know. It's kind of pushing it, but I think they could definitely. I think their basketball program will definitely be better than their football program this year.
I love how you're comparing, the conference to their football teams, which is
I do
interesting.
that. I do that in all my previews too, literally, because that's all they talk about is the dang SEC football.
Bammer point on Paul.
Paul.
All right, we need that Paul Feinbaum. Paul Feinbaum, come on the podcast to discuss. All right, yeah. No, Austin Wiley is the key to this team. They're not bringing in anyone that's over 6'7", and right now their only returning player other than Wiley is 6'8" Horace Spencer, who is a junior this year, who only played 20% of their minutes. So Austin Wiley will be their key. They've always been kind of undersized in relation to their competition. So I think that if he has a good season and he's able to hold his own down there, I think Auburn can be extremely successful. Mustafa Haran is an absolute animal. I've watched him play in high school, and I watched a few of his games last year. So I think that he's going to be very good. Whether they can kind of put it together and, put quality wins together, that is yet to be seen. This is still Auburn basketball we're talking about, and we're still talking about Bruce Pearl. So, you kind of have to, look at the roster, look at the numbers, and then see, how it turns out. So they're going to be an interesting team to watch in their non-conference play. Because even if they win their non-conference games, how do they look and how do those guys kind of work together, both Wiley and Haran?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said it. This team, also they returned Daniel Purlfoy, who is a sophomore. That sophomore class is going to be really good. He had averaged 11 points per game last year as a freshman. That sophomore class is going to be their key this year. I think if they can rely on them, if they can score in bunches and do all the dirty work and everything, they'll make it to the NCAA tournament without a doubt.
Boy, I'd love to see Auburn in the NCAA tournament. War Eagle, baby.
I bet they'll be a one and done, though. You can't trust an Auburn team.
All right, next up we're going to talk about Texas A&M, 8-10 in conference play, 16-15 overall. Texas A&M, very interesting team. They've had some good teams in the past. Obviously, Robert Williams coming back, just a monster down low. What are your thoughts on Texas A&M?
Yeah, and I'm telling you, man, this front court, this league with big guys is incredible. Tyler Davis and Robert Williams, arguably 2 of the best big men in the conference on the same team. That's pretty scary. It's just a matter of can they stay out of foul trouble and stay within their own games. And I think they'll be fine. That front court's really good, along with DJ Hogg, too, who showed flashes of potential last year, averaging 12 points a game. Their backcourt's going to be the problem. I think freshman JJ he was a sophomore last year, or he was a freshman last year, yeah. He played decent, I think, to start the season, but then what was it? Oh, no, wait, no, he was a redshirt. Oops, I'm reading wrong. It's been a long week, but he was ineligible last year, so he couldn't play, and he was expected to be a big contributor last year at the point guard spot. But I think he could step in, fill that role this year if he can stay eligible. And then Admin Gilder, who had played the point guard last year, he averaged 13 points. The point guard position was not his spot, so he had to really adapt to that. And I think this year in the 2-guard spot, he'll be a lot more efficient. I think that this Texas A&M team, I'm not sure how deep they are necessarily. I know they have a lot of guys coming back, especially in the front court. You got Morelos, too, along with Hogg, Williams, and Davis. In the backcourt, that's going to be their big issue, but they got a couple decent recruits coming in, too, and a couple transfers. But I think this Texas A&M team can rely on their front court enough to really propel them into an NCAA tournament and finish in top 4, top 5 of the conference. I think they could be a second weekend team. It's just a matter of can these big guys perform night in, night out, and not like fall into that foul trouble like we see with so many bigs now in college basketball. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. They'll be a fun team to watch this year. I'm really excited to see Robert Williams come back for his second season. He was a beast last year, showed great potential. I think he's poised for an even bigger sophomore year.
Yeah, I think Robert Williams is one of the most underrated players in college basketball. I saw the interviews that they had at the SEC day where they had, John Calipari with like 5 billion people where he's, talking to his thing. And then they have Robert Williams where there's, 5 reporters around him. Robert Williams is super underrated. People need to start talking about him more. I hope he has a good season. And, I hope that he's able to prove, himself, raise his draft stock and kind of move on from there. He's really a good player, and I'm very intrigued to watch him this year. I know you mentioned some of their freshmen they have coming in. If you're looking for backcourt, they have 2 3-stars, TJ Starks and JJ Chandler. Starks is more of a ball handler, point guard. Chandler is, more of an off-ball kind of guy. But both those guys are going to have to rely on a little bit. Also, 4-star Savion Flagg coming in. He's a small forward. So, they have some talent coming in on the freshman front. And if those guys can, kind of hold their own and be able to allow Williams to do his thing, I think they're going to be a successful team this year. I have them pretty high, I believe. Yes, I have them at 2 or 3. Mm-hmm. So I think I have them higher than anyone else in the SEC standings this year. All right, next up we're going to talk about Tennessee. Another Rick Barnes, 8-10 in conference play, 16-16 overall. What are your thoughts on Tennessee Volunteers?
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee brings a lot back, that's for sure. I mean, they lost their leading scorer, Robert Hubbs, but they bring back a bunch. I think it was maybe 8 of their 10 scores, maybe 8 of the 10 highest scores from last year. I'm not exactly sure the exact statistic, but yeah, I mean, they bring a lot back, but can these guys perform? I don't know. They had to rely a lot on Hubbs last year. They obviously were very inconsistent. They're 16-16. People think this program's finally going to break through at some point, but Tennessee just seems to be that middle of the pack SEC team where they look like world beaters one night, where they almost go on the road and beat Kentucky, and then they lose to a team like, I don't know, like a crappy LSU team at home, which is something you cannot do in the SEC. So, I mean, there's a lot of question marks around this team, even though they got a lot of guys coming back. Their freshman class is definitely a positive sign. James Daniels, transfer, who was the leading scorer in college basketball a couple years ago at Howard. He averaged like 26 points per game. He's 6-foot guard. He'll definitely be a key scorer this year. He'll help out that scoring boost. But I just think there's a lot of questions around this team and a lot of inexperienced talent. And I think there's going to be some growing pains at the beginning of the year for sure, and probably in the early conference play. But I think as the season goes on, they could definitely adapt. And if they can stay consistent, which is huge for any team, I think they could find a way to sneak into that top half. I don't know, but there's just too much question marks around this team. And I don't know how Rick Barnes is really going about it. Tennessee's really been a up and down program ever since Bruce Pearl left. So, yeah, this team, there's just too many question marks for me to really put a finger on it. I would say they'd probably be 8 through 10, but I'm not sure. They could be lower. They can maybe be higher, but if anything, I think I'd see them be lower. But as of now, I think I'm going to go 8 through 10.
Yeah, Robert Hubbs is gone, as you mentioned, but he only averaged like 13.5 points per game. So he was the leading scorer, but not by much. The name to remember here, Grant Williams. He's coming back for a sophomore year. He's a guard. He averaged 12.5 points, 6 rebounds, and assists per game last year. So I think he is going to be a pivotal player for them, whether he can take the next step and kind of add some consistency for Tennessee and be a threat to, score in the paint and finish down low.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next up, we're going to talk about Georgia, 9-9 in conference play, 19-14 overall. What are your thoughts on Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing the preview for this team, I think they're one of the sleeper teams in this conference. I mean, the loss of J.J. Frazier definitely hurts. But, I mean, they return 9 of their 10 leading scorers from last year, including Yante Metten, Mr. BMOC, big man on campus this year for the Bulldogs. I don't think Dickie V will be down in Athens that much, but this guy's legit. He averaged 18 points and 6.8 rebounds last year, and that number is going to go up. He's an NBA prospect without a doubt. I think he's definitely going to be the key this year for the Bulldogs. Scoring from inside, outside, whatever. He's going to have to do a lot, but he's going to have guys who can score around him because we've seen it. The team has that guy, but does he have players around him who can put the ball in the bucket as well? Rayshawn Hammond's a top 50 recruit. He's going to see some time. I'm excited to see him play. He's a versatile forward, can play multiple positions. He should be a really good duo with him and Metten. And then Derek OBJ, a junior, 6'8", rebounding machine. He's becoming a better scorer, but his main focus is rebounding. He's going to be big. But the real question is going to be the backcourt. It's been a common trend. Either a team has a loaded backcourt or a loaded front court. There's really no team that has that balance, and Georgia's no different. Tyree Crump, he's a solid point guard, but he really is just an outside shooter. And then Turtle Jackson, that's an odd name. And then he's going to play point guard this year, but he's more of a slasher. I'm not really sure how much of a true point guard he is, but he can score the ball. But, yeah, like I said, he's not really – I don't know if he's a great playmaker. But I don't know. This team's going to be interesting. I think Yante Metten is going to be an absolute stud this year. Should be one of the leading candidates for SEC Player of the Year. But I don't know. I could see this team being like 7th or 8th team because this is Mark Fox's year, man. If he doesn't make the NCAA tournament this year, I could see him on his way out. It's been a while now, like 4 years or something like that since he's taken over, and fans are getting anxious, which is kind of shocking, especially surrounding Georgia football or basketball, excuse me. But this team's got to be the one to do it, and I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Maiten's a good start, but can he carry a team? That's a good question. I mean, I'm high on his skill. He's a really great player, but I don't know in the end if relying on him will be enough.
Yeah, I think you have it right. I'm not very high on this team this year. Losing J.J. Frazier is huge. He was the guy that led them. He always had the ball in his hands. He was top 100 in the country in percentage of minutes that he played. I mean, he almost played 90% of their minutes. So he logged a lot of time. He always had the ball in his hands. I think it's they're not quite to the level of Indiana, but I think it's kind of like Indiana losing Yogi Ferrell. It's like, oh, we'll replace him with this guy or this guy. But, that's really not as easy as you think. Even with, big men coming back, it's not as easy when you have a guy that has the ball in his hands so often to just replace him once he's gone. So I think they're going to take a step back. Still watch this team for Yante Maiten, though. He's a big talent down low. He's only 6'8", but he can really score it, big rebounder. And he's definitely a player to watch this year for Georgia because he's going to have to carry them for time and time again if they're going to want to kind of compete. So I think they're going to be below 9-9 in conference. I have them 12th, I believe, in my predictions.
Yeah, I think I had them around the same spot. I mean, I could see possibly them sneaking in like 8-10, like that. This conference, that bottom, I mean, you have 5 or 6 teams that you could see making that top group, but then the rest, it's just like a total mix. You have no idea.
And I think the middle of that pack is going to be pretty stacked again. I mean, there's, like 7 teams within 3 games of each other or something like that. I mean, it's ridiculous how many how many programs are within just like a game or 2 of each other in the middle of the conference there.
That's what's going to make this conference run so interesting this year.
Oh, best conference college basketball? Not so sure about that one.
Oh, no. Big Ten's the best conference college basketball. Duh.
All right, next up, Vanderbilt, 10-8 in conference play, 19-15 overall. They bring in, not as many recruits as you think here. Just 1 4-star, Saban Lee, who's going to be a point guard. And then as well, they have a couple of 3-stars coming in. Sean, what are your thoughts on Vanderbilt?
I'm still asking the question, how did Vanderbilt get into the NCAA tournament last year? They weren't relevant until like the last week of the season or something like that. Isn't that right?
Yeah, no, they just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, that was crazy. But I mean, they lost probably their staple of the program, Luke Cornett. He's got to be one of the most likable players in college basketball. Nothing better than a 7-foot mobile wingman or big man who can shoot the three, can do a little bit of everything. He'll definitely be missed. But the thing that's going to be key this year for the Commodores is their backcourt. Riley Chance and Matthew Fisher-Davis, two seniors. Matthew Fisher-Davis obviously was known for that. What did he do last year? He fouled the guy or something like that in the round of 64.
I don't remember that, to be honest with you.
But he'll definitely be a big piece. Those two will be absolutely huge this year to do a little bit of playmaking, do a little bit of scoring, just do honestly everything. Because I mean, their front court, Jeff Roberson, he's a power forward, averaged 10 and 7 last year. He'll be solid, but can he carry that front court? I think the big thing this year for Vanderbilt's gonna be their backcourt play. Obviously with those two seniors, and then Joseph Toy, guy from Chicago, junior, very good player, very versatile. Is trying to get a little better in the scoring department, but he'll be all right this year. He's a good glue guy. And then Saban Lee, who is also going to get good minutes. He'll provide great depth at the point guard position. Very athletic, decent playmaker, can improve his outside shot a little bit, but he's definitely going to be an intriguing freshman. I think he's one of the sleepers in this conference. Like you said, he's a 4-star, recruited by schools from all over the country. He'll be a solid player. And I think Bryce Drew, I really like him as a coach, honestly. He really rebuilt that Valparaiso program and somehow, some way got into the NCAA tournament with that Vanderbilt team last year. But I think he's going to do the same thing this year. I think they'll find a way to sneak in. I don't know if they can be a second weekend team, but they could maybe win a game or so. They were so close last year against Northwestern, which I'm still kind of ticked off about. But I think they'll find a way to sneak in. I really love that backcourt of Fisher-Davis and LaChance, and I think that's going to be their boost to get into the tournament.
Yeah, this is an older team. I mean, you look at it, Roberson's going to be a senior, Fisher-Davis is a senior, LaChance is a senior. So, this is going to be a pretty good team. Even Jeff Toy is going to be a junior. So it's going to be very interesting. A player to watch here behind Toy in the backcourt, DeJury Baptiste. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but I hope so. 6'10", he only played about 10 minutes a game last year, but I think if he can take the next step forward, he would be the big man to kind of fill in there, because other than that, it's a lot of 6'6" and 6'7" guys in that front court. So I think it will be very interesting to see kind of if that front court can hold its own to allow the backcourt to kind of do that thing. I don't think they're going to make the tournament, to be honest with you. I think they're still kind of a year away. So I think it'll be very interesting to see what they do, whether they need to go back to the drawing board or, kind of push forward and kind of go all in. But Bryce Drew has been recruiting very well. So he's got some his name in a lot of these top lists for good recruits. So it'll be very interesting to see if he's able to pull in a Darius Garland and kind of build off the momentum for this year and last year.
Another top recruit that Indiana could get, that Ryan Dalcan might cry if we don't get him.
Yeah, Dahl's already, he's already facing the fact that not every top recruit that Indiana's going after will come to Indiana.
So I think goodness.
and as we were talking about that, he just texted me, so I think his ears must be ringing. All right, next up, Ole Miss. They're 10-8 in conference play, 20-13 overall. They are the worst recruiting class in the SEC this year. So, 1 4-star, 1 3-star, Devontae Schuler and Bruce Stevens are their 2 recruits. Schuler is from Oak Hill Academy, which is very well known. What are your thoughts on Ole Miss and the Rebels this year?
I mean, the key is give me their backcourt. That's what they're going to rely on. Brandon Crawford, or Markel Crawford, excuse me. Terrence Davis and DeAndre Burnett. Crawford's a transfer from Memphis, averaged 12 points 2 seasons ago. He'll be a great addition to them. This backcourt's elite. I'm telling you, man. they return. These guys are point scorers. They can do a little bit of everything, but the real question is going to be how are they going to cope with the loss of Sebastian Saiz, big man, average double machine last year. He did a lot. He's going to be missed. But, I mean, this backcourt's going to make up for it. I think Andy Kennedy's got a really good group of those guys. They know how to put the ball in the bucket. They know how to score. They're elite. I can't say that enough. But I don't know if it's going to be enough to make up for that front court depth. I mean, Drake transferred, Dominique Olziznik. These guys have freaking hard last names to pronounce, but he's going to be solid. Bruce Stevens, who is a top JUCO transfer, 6'8", known for his shooting ability from the outside. He'll be solid, but I don't know if their lack of front court depth can really I don't think their lack of front court depth will be – I think that'll be a big problem this year. The backcourt will be solid, but that front court's really – that's bugging me because Ole Miss has a chance to be really good this year, but that front court, there's just so many questions surrounding it. I'm not really sure how they can cope with that lack of depth.
Yeah, I'm not buying this team. I think they're not going to be very good, to be honest with you. I know that they went to the NIT and they won 2 games, but I'm just not buying this team. I just don't think it's there. I have them picked last on in the SEC standings, so that might be a little bit much, but also like 4 or 5 other writers also had them finish last. So I just don't see it. Their front court's good, or their backcourt's very good, but their front court leaves a lot to be desired. And in the SEC, this year it's pretty front court heavy. A lot of teams have good big men. So if you can't hold your own down there, you're gonna be in trouble. And there's not anyone that I could say, oh hey, if they take the next step, these guys are long, large steps from being able to kind of compete and hold their own at this level. All right, next up, we are going to talk about the Alabama Crimson Tide. Roll Tide, 10-8 in conference play last year, 19-14. The little general, Avery Johnson's leading the way over there. I don't know if you know, but he won an NBA championship with the Mavs. I think people needed to be reminded of that. Some people forget about that. But, obviously, they have a couple of fantastic players, John Petty, and also, oh my goodness, Colin Sexton, John Petty, Alex Reese.
How could you forget about Colin Sexton, dude?
His name slipped my head there for a second.
He's like Bo Scarborough, Jalen Hurts.
So, they have an elite backcourt just with those 2 freshmen. Petty and Sexton are both just absolute animals. What are your thoughts on the Crimson Tide here? Roll Tide, roll.
This is like the Chicago Cubs. The bandwagon fans are starting to come out for Alabama. There is so much hype around this program. What is it? Buckle up? Is that what it's called? Is that the motto? Something like that.
I'm not sure. Something the little general came up probably.
The little general, but yeah, Colin Sexton all starts with him in that freshman class. They bring back some good returners too. Braxton Key, who I saw a thing on The Athletic the other day. They said that's going to be their glue guy. He'll be huge for them. Dazon Ingram, another guard who team up with that freshman group with Petty and Sexton. The only problem, the big issue for this team last year was their turnovers. And obviously Sexton can help out with that a little bit. But I don't know. It's going to be tough for them. Sexton is going to be really good. Petty, I'm pretty high on. He's a really good shooter. But I think the problem with this team is going to be, can they find that leader right away? Sexton obviously is a great player, great floor general, I guess, but he hasn't played a college game yet. You got to remember that. These kids have not played a college game yet, and there's so much hype surrounding this team. I think they can be a second weekend team. It all depends on matchups and stuff, but it's going to be tough. Sexton, yeah, I've said it so many times. He's going to be good, but can he lead this team? Can this team – people forget they were 4 games over 500 last year in an NIT team. So can they rebound with this top recruiting class? We'll see. I think they can, but it'll be an interesting season in Tuscaloosa nonetheless.
Yeah, I think this team is going to be legit. I think people are going to watch for the freshmen, but as the season goes on, I think Braxton Key is going to be a name that teams or fans and teams are really going to have to pay attention to. He almost left for the NBA draft, so that should give you kind of a feel for how good he is. I mean, he's a talented player. He had a chance to leave for the NBA draft, but opted to come back. I think these two freshmen had kind of a part for that. And don't forget Alex Reese. I mean, he's a 4-star power forward, 6'9" guy. He's going to be able to come in there and contribute right away. If Avery Johnson can get this team playing together, I think the sky is the limit. I have them finishing third. A lot of people have them finishing second. I think overall, as a composite, we had them finishing second based on votes. So I think it'll be very interesting to kind of watch. A number of people have Player of the Year, Colin Sexton, as well. They voted for him. All right, next up, we're going to talk about South Carolina. Obviously, they went to the Final Four last year. Very impressive, but they've lost quite a bit of talent. They were 12-6 in conference play and 22-10 overall. Sean, what are your thoughts on the Gamecocks?
I mean, the problem with South Carolina is they lost their three best players from last year, Dwayne Notice and Darius Thornwell and PJ Dozier. That's obviously going to hurt three best players, three best scorers. They do return Chris Silva and Mike Coster, two very solid front court players. Chris Silva is poised to have a breakout year. He's going to be really good. I don't know. There's a team I do not – Frank Martin, granted, great guy, pretty good coach. I don't think he can recover from the loss of all those guys. I think Chris Silva and Costa are going to be – they're going to have to do a lot this year, too much for them to be a great team. So, the front court's good. Back court has its issues. Corey Holden will be solid. Transfer from Delaware. He'll be pretty good. And then Rakeem Felder, who averaged 14 minutes last year as a freshman, behind all those guys, he'll be solid. But, yeah, I just don't really see South Carolina repeating what they did last year. I think they'll be okay, competitive, but I really don't see them doing anything special.
Yeah, I really don't think they're going to be doing anything special after last year. Obviously, they lost a bunch of their guys. So I think it's going to be kind of a rebuilding year. But they're always a tough out. If Frank Martin is a great coach, they're always a tough team to beat. So, it'll be interesting to see if they're able to kind of put something together and, play. If they can play good defense, they can win games. And I think they can do that. So they're going to be a lot better than you think based on their roster and what they lost from last year. But I don't think they kind of have the star power to outlast some of the top offensive teams like a Kentucky or, like an Alabama. All right, we have three teams to go here. We're moving right along. Arkansas, 12-6 in league play, 25-9 overall. What are your thoughts on Arkansas, the Razorbacks?
I think the front court's gonna be solid. They have a bunch of freshmen coming in, all in-state guys, 3 4-star recruits who will be really good. Darius Hall, Daniel Gafford, who is a top 100 player. I think he's top 30, top 40, but he'll be really good. And then Gabe Osabuin, I think that's how his name. And then they got a bunch of guys coming back. In the front court, they have who is it? They got Jalen Barford and Macon. I forget where Macon from. He's he averaged 13 points per game last year. Those two will be solid. I like that front court over there. In the backcourt, solid. I don't know how their depth is going to be. I think the freshman class is really good. I know they have 3 4-stars and 1 3-star. All those guys from Arkansas. So Anderson did a really good job of scooping all those guys up, and I think they could be a team that will probably be middle of the pack in the SEC. They got some growing pains, but I think they'll still be solid and probably they could sneak in the NCAA tournament, maybe lose maybe a first 4 in or something, but I think they'll make some noise this year without a doubt, but I don't know if they could be really at the top, but I could see them being middle of the pack for sure.
Arkansas is one of those teams where I feel like I never watch any of their games. I watch college basketball every night during the season, and I'm always trying to watch what's going on and try to be sure I watch potential tournament teams and teams I haven't seen before. I feel like I'd never watch them. Like it's never like, oh, like it's an Arkansas Kentucky game or something like or an Arkansas anyone game. I feel like they're just like a tough team to kind of peg. And then at the end of the year, you look at it, it's like Arkansas finished third in the SEC. Like I haven't watched them enough to kind of evaluate them with my own eyes, other than kind of what you read online in KenPom.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're gonna move up to number 2 here. The Florida Gators, 14-4 conference play, 24-8 overall. Obviously, they had that fantastic shot in the NCAA tournament by Chris Chioza,
yeah.
Chioza, that's it. But they fell short in the Elite Eight to South Carolina, the team we just talked about a few minutes ago. What are your thoughts on the Florida Gators with Kevon Allen coming back?
Yeah, I mean, the loss of Casey Hill will sting in the backcourt. Canyon Barry, another good scorer. Devin Robinson, big guy down low. But I don't know, this backcourt, man, the Chris Chioza, Kevon Allen, those two are going to be very good. And they got a transfer, 6'5", Igor Kolchevo or something like that. I don't even know. These guys have messed up names. But he averaged 18 points at Rice, 8 rebounds. He'll be very solid. John Igbunu, I can't believe I took that long to really bring up his name, but he'll be a stud. He won't be available until early conference play, I believe. And they're saying at the earliest. So he'll be solid when that comes around. I mean, he'll take a little bit. It'll probably take a little bit for him to gel, get used to college ball, but he'll be get back to the grind. But he'll be fine. But this Florida team, they're very solid all around. I think they have a decent freshman class too with Isaiah Stokes and a couple other guys. But overall, I think this team, Chase Johnson as well, who's actually the highest rated freshman in that class, DeAndre Ballard, very solid, skillfully. He'll be good. I think this Florida team could give Kentucky a run for its money. I don't know if they'll top them, but they definitely got the best chance out of all the teams in the SEC. Kevon Allen should be at the top of the people's Player of the Year votes this year. He'll be very good. I just think this backcourt's very strong overall. And then as a team, they got great depth, even though they lost 4 of their big players. I still think they'll be solid and be very relevant. And Mike White's doing a great job down there. And his job recruiting, he's done magnificent. I think they're a program on the rise that maybe could surpass Kentucky in a couple years. Who knows? But if anyone's going to do it, it's the Gators.
I am a big Mike White guy. I'm a big Mike White guy. I think he's building something really special. I mean, I know this is a different team, but here are their losses from last year. Gonzaga, Final Four team. Duke, excellent team. Florida State, very, very good team. South Carolina, Final Four team. That was South Carolina on the road. They beat South Carolina at home. They lost to Vanderbilt at home. Vanderbilt had their number. Vanderbilt beat them 3 times, which is insane. But Vanderbilt 3 times, and then they lost to Kentucky at Kentucky. And then South Carolina to finish the season in the tournament. I mean, other than Vanderbilt, all those teams were very good. And, they even beat South Carolina at home. This team is very good. I mean, obviously Casey Hill is a tough loss, but I think Kevon Allen's ready to take the next step. I think he's going to take the next step, more possessions in his hands, and, he's going to be taking a lot more shots. So I think it'll be very good. Is Ebundu coming back?
Yeah,
what's his name?
They said at the earliest SEC, like the beginning of SEC.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's right. I was mixing him up with someone else. Yeah, he's going to be good. He was good for them, and when he went down last year, that really kind of hurt them for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I'm looking at his stats right now. He didn't miss a single 3-pointer all year. He was 1 for 1. So, I think he's kind of a hot shooter from deep. So, very, very consistent out there from beyond the arc. But he was a monster on those boards from last year. So, once he gets going, I think he's going to be a very good player. And finally, I know Sean's been dying to talk about this team all night. We've been leading up to it. The Kentucky Wildcats, 16-2 in conference play, 29-5 overall. And, key losses, basically everyone on the roster.
Except Brad Calipari.
Except Brad Calipari. Key additions, like the top, like 7 of the top 20 recruits. We'll finally get our first shot at Hamidou Diallo, kind of seeing him, the uber athlete that is an absolute monster at shooting guard. Kevin Knox, kind of surprise commit to Kentucky, but Kevin Knox, Jared Vanderbilt, Jamal Baker, Shai Gregorius Alexander, Quade Green. I mean, Nick Richards. They bring in quite a big recruiting class. This team's gonna be pretty good. What are your thoughts?
You brought up literally every player. Probably every one of those guys was a top 30 recruit too. I think this Kentucky team obviously will be top, no doubt, in the SEC. I don't know if they can make a Final Four run. I think they'll be stopped in the Elite Eight. I don't know. I have an issue. Don't get me wrong, Hamidou Diallo, great player, great athlete, great kid. I just don't know if he has that it factor. I mean, I hate to say it. He looked fine playing this summer, but there were just times where you're like, what the heck? Like, this kid's was going to the NBA, like thinking about going to the NBA this year. Like, there's no way. I mean, he's had time to develop over the summer, obviously, get used to the college game a little bit. He'll be good this year, but I still have question marks around him. I'm not buying the hype right away, but overall as a team, I think Kentucky will be very good. I've been hearing a lot about Wenyen Gabriel, a guy who seemingly was non-existent last year in some games. Really, I forgot he was on the team, but he's shown great flashes this year during the summer. He's been playing really well, according to John Calipari, who says I don't even know. I can't stand the guy, but
he says a lot. It's basically what
he says a lot. He answers the question, but he doesn't answer the question. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying.
Oh my gosh. And I don't know. He thinks there's no issues surrounding their program. I think his program's a total scam. There's definitely – I'm sounding like Ryan Delkamp again. So many Ryan Delkamp mentions, but saying the whole program's a scam and all. But, I mean, they'll be good this year without a doubt. They got a bunch of loaded guys. I mean, Jared Vanderbilt, I've been hearing things that Calipari said the other day. I don't know how much truth there is to this, but he said that Vanderbilt, if he's not ready, he's not going to play this season. So who knows with that? He was a very good scorer, McDonald's All-American. Kevin Knox will be good. This Kentucky team, they'll be good. They'll be good. I'm telling you that.
I think the issue with this team is going to be shooting, and I've read a few pieces about it. But Diallo is a fantastic athlete, but he's not what Calipari's been working with the past few years. I mean,
he's not,
you look at it's been Malik Monk, who's a knockdown shooter, and then you had Jamal Murray, and then the year before that was Devin Booker.
Mm-hmm.
And then the year before that was the Harrison twins, but I mean, they really don't count. So, I mean, those are all guys that were decent athletes, but really, really good shooters. Now you have somebody who's a really, really good athlete, and we'll see if he's a decent enough shooter to kind of carry them. Because with so many big guys, I feel like teams are just going to clog the lane and force them to make outside jumpers, and whether they can or not, that'll be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this Kentucky, they'll be. Like I've said, they'll be solid, but that's their Achilles heel. They can't shoot. I mean, last year all they had was Malik Monk and Derek Willis here and there hitting standstill jumpers, catch and shoot. But other than that, I don't even know, like Kevin Knox, who I've seen play, I mean, at the McDonald's All-American game, but he was fine. I don't know if he can take that. I don't know if he's a top NBA draft. I don't know if he's a lottery pick at this point, but who knows? But yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. I mean, that 3-point shooting is going to be questionable, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing, I mean, obviously Kentucky's last team. So I think the one thing about Kentucky that I kind of want to get out there, even though Kentucky fans, John Calipari puts guys in the NBA. That's great. But the rate at which he does that is not as fantastic as everyone thinks. I'm looking at the roster. They have Sacha Jones, Ty Windward, and Wenyen Gabriel. I mean, Gabriel played last year, but Killian Jones and Windward are both 6'10". I mean, they're big guys. I mean, you could put them on most teams and they would get a lot of playing time and really be able to show their stuff. But they're just kind of sitting around and practicing with Kentucky. I mean, they really have no role on the team in terms of like gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'll be interesting, especially because, those two guys are coming back. And then you add, I mean, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 big guys for really 2 or 3 positions. It'll be very interesting to see how it shakes out, because there's always 1 or 2 guys that kind of ends up with the short end of the stick at the end of the year that really doesn't get as much playing time, and the NBA scouts don't get to see them as much.
Yeah.
All right, so that is all the teams. We're going to wrap it up as we usually do with our Player of the Year picks. So I will go first, and my Player of the Year pick is going to be Michael Porter Jr. I think he's going to be super good. I've switched this a couple times. I had Kevon Allen, I had Diallo, I had Sexton. I'm going with Michael Porter Jr. I think he's going to be so good, and I think although his team might not be doing as well, I think it's going to be like a TJ Warren kind of year where he just puts up massive stats, and like how his team does really doesn't matter. Who's your pick for the Player of the Year?
Brad, I hate agreeing with you on this kind of stuff, but I'm going the same. I've heard nothing negative about Michael Porter. It's scary to think that he would stay 2 years, but I think that's some BS, but who knows? He'll be a stud his freshman year. It'll be fun watching him and Yante play together. There's a ton of buzz around that program. I think it's going to be so fun to watch. I think he'll definitely be Player of the Year. I don't know. Like you said, I don't know how his team will do. It could either go one way or another, but I think Michael Porter at the end of the day is going to be Player of the Year.
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to watch. Also, Duncan Hensley, who's a frequent guest on the podcast, also is picking Michael Porter. I just know that from I know Duncan very well, and I know how he feels about Michael Porter. So I can confirm that he will be picking Michael Porter as his Player of the Year as well. So that makes it 3 of the College Pride Press guys that feel Michael Porter is a lock for that award. So with that, we are finished with our SEC predictions podcast. We covered all the teams and our Player of the Year pick. Sean, any last minute thoughts before we head off? Oh, actually, real quick, next week we will be doing Pac-12, and I'm doing all the team previews for that. So be sure to look out for those as we scatter them throughout the week to give you a little something on each day. Any final thoughts, Sean, before we head out?
No, I mean, we've covered it all in the SEC. I think this conference is going to be really fun. I'm excited to watch. I think this freshman class, like we've talked about, is absolutely loaded, and there's a lot more to come too. So keep an eye on the SEC this year. I think they could have a couple second weekend teams, depending on matchups and how the season goes. But, yeah, I think this conference is definitely going to be one you want to watch this year, and I think it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun conference to watch. A lot of different storylines, which I love about conferences, because it's not just top teams. It's not just one team. It's top teams, middle pack, freshmen, seniors. There's a little bit of everything for different fans to enjoy out there. So it'll be a great season in the SEC. Thanks, Sean, for joining me. Be sure to check us out at EDU Pride Press on Twitter and collegepridepress.com, where we have all previews for each team and each conference. We are going little by little each day. So this week we released all of them from the SEC, obviously, and the Big 12 and the Big East are already out. So if you want to check out those, be sure to check out at collegepridepress.com. Have a great week, everyone.